Why is it always something new causing the Pacers to lose games right now? Jon Washburn joins me today as we try to dive into that. We talk a lot about Micah Potter and how he has seized the starting center job and who should be the fifth starter during this time with Bennedict Mathurin. We get to all of that today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and Circle City Spin. And today, a lot to get to. Bennedict Mathurin is out for a bit of time. Who should be the fifth starter during that period? We talk about Micah Potter, who has seized the Pacers starting center spot. How has he been able to do that? What skills of his have been critical in that? What does it actually tell us about the Pacers? But to start, Jon Washburn and I get into something that I've found so fascinating recently. The Pacers keep losing, and it's a different thing causing them to lose every game. What specifically could be the reason that it's turnovers here and rebounding on one end there and rebounding on the other end here, and offense this night and defense this night? It's just always something different. What does that say about this Pacers team? Jon was the best. It was a great conversation. Let's just get right to it. The Pacers really stink right now. They've lost 12 in a row, but they have a new center who's doing pretty well. They have an opportunity for a new fifth starter, and Johnny Furphy only played a little bit in his first game in that role, and there's still always, as there has been with this injured 6-30 team, much to discuss. And joining me today to do it, a man who has never lost 12 NBA games in a row, it's Jon Washburn himself. Hello, sir. How are you?
Well, I'm doing better than the Pacers right now. You are right. I've never lost 12 in a row, but I'm feeling every single one of these losses as we as the doldrums of this NBA season just grow longer and longer.
I have no reason for feeling this because the results have still been bad, but I feel like they're playing better right now than they were earlier in the losing streak, which is danging with faint praise to the highest degree because they're still not winning and the Spurs blew them out. But like since they got Nesmith back, they just have more capable time every game. If they just have, like, they don't even have to eliminate their horrible stretch. They have to make it shorter. Like they have to make it 5 minutes instead of 10, and then they'll be winning, which they can't do it. They can't do it. And what has been so shocking to me that I keep talking about is it's never the same thing. Like early in the season, when they had that god-awful road trip out west, they lost every game because they could not score. Their offense was awful. Right? They were the worst offense in the league. And so it's very easy to dissect what they need to do better, what's going wrong, and things of that nature. Right now, that's not the case. They lose for a different reason every game, it feels like. And sure, they have a stretch that's bad, but the reason that stretch is bad is what's different and dynamic. And that's really confusing to me. Sometimes it's that the other team's strength overwhelms them, like the Rockets rebounding on the offensive end, the Spurs rebounding on the defensive end. But then they have a million turnovers against the Heat, and they can't guard anything against, well, I guess that's happened the most often, against a couple of these teams, or they can't buy a three in the fourth quarter against the Orlando Magic. And it's like, what do I even make of this when the stuff they're doing bad at, they do well at in other games? That's what is so confusing to me about this most recent stretch of 6, 7, 8-ish losses, I would say.
Or as you mentioned on yesterday's podcast, they're even doing the stuff well in the first quarter and the third quarter and the fourth quarter. And it's just the second quarter, for whatever reason, as it has been the last, 8 or 10 games or so, they, for whatever reason, they cannot continue doing those things that are needed, that are necessary to win a basketball game. They can't just put it together for 48 minutes. It's very frustrating, very weird, just bizarre behavior from our Pacers while they're trying to get Rick Carlisle his 1,000th win.
TJ McConnell, when I asked him about it after, I can't remember if it was San Antonio or Orlando at home, said focus. And I don't know if that was a media speak answer or his real actual, here's why we're doing a different thing poorly every game answer. But it would kind of make sense in that after it happens, like they give up the 17-0 run to the Magic, something happens and they click into gear. And so maybe it is just like something relaxes them or something of that nature, because what it felt like was a problem to me at times earlier this season was in their most disconnected moments, they'd give up a name your number 6-8-10-0 run. And a couple players would be like, well, what we're doing clearly isn't working, so I'm going to do something else. And if one guy does that and the other 4 keep doing what the game plan said or what they thought they were supposed to do, everything falls apart. Like, you just look bad. And so the run actually gets worse, even if the one player makes a heroic play once or twice. And so I partially wonder if that is still kind of the core of this. And that is a very natural response to me, by the way, to losing a lot of games. Is like, well, clearly what we're doing doesn't work. We've lost 12 games in a row, many of them humiliatingly so. I'm going to do right now, instead of swinging it like I normally would in this play, I'm going to drive, or I'm going to try to find my shot, or, okay, this double on defense isn't working. I'm going to stay a little closer to my man. He just hit a 3 last time, right? And then after a while, that costs your team more than it helps. Assuming everybody else continues to do what they do. That is my current operating theory. And I don't actually know the easiest way to combat that human nature, because you've lost 12 times in a row. Everybody knows they're better than this. So you have to find a way as a Pacers player, which is not easy to do, to dig in and say, stick with it. The rest of the game does go well, and we will get through this run, or we will fix this problem faster if we all just keep doing the things we're supposed to do. I think that is what it is, if I had to put my own words to the theory. But even that kind of feels like I'm like guessing on the psyche of pro athletes, which is always a scary thing to do.
Yeah. You know, I've been thinking a lot about this, and, you know, one of the similarities I'm finding to this season is the season that the Pacers had after the Paul George injury. And obviously that was a bad season for a lot of reasons, but, you know, I used to write for a Pacers website back in the day. And I remember that season after Paul George, shattered his leg in an exhibition match for an exhibition tournament. And we were all just, absolutely devastated. And then, Lance Stevenson leaves, right? And the entire next season, it was just new guy after new guy in new spot and new role, and we just couldn't get any momentum. And I remember I wrote a big feature on David West that year about his leadership, about what it was, for him to, to be a role model to the younger guys, to be a man, to be a leader. And I was digging deep on some like lineup data for that season. And while I was writing this article, and it was like January or February, it's pretty deep into the season, I came across this stat that at that point in the season, like mid-January, early February, he had not played in a single lineup that year that he had played in the previous season. He hadn't played in a single lineup in 2015 that he had played in 2014. There was not one time that David West looked around on the floor in 2015 and said, hey, I remember that one time last year that the five of us shared the floor together.
Wow. And
I just see a lot of that with the Pacers, right? Nembhard's out. He's back, but now Nesmith's out. He's back. Now Mathurin's out. He's back. Obi's been gone the whole time, not to mention the engine that makes this whole thing work is gone too, and you've been keeping track of, if the Pacers just have 6 of their 9, they play better. But think about that. 6 of their 9, like
2.5 games. That's it.
But even 6 of their 9, that's such a low bar, 2/3 of what they had last year. And I just think, at the highest levels, 2 possessions matter, 3 possessions matter. And you see 1, 2, 3 possessions every game where the guys are 80% connected, but they're not 100% connected, right? We forget to box out on a free throw, and Orlando gets a rebound and they hit a 3 on the rebound, and that's a 4-point play, and it's just so deflating. You only have to do that twice a game, and these turn wins into losses, and everything just keeps snowballing.
For a while, that was so obviously like the biggest reason. And people are so like annoyed when you talk about it like that. But like, they weren't so hurt. So there's like one thing you could say is they were so hurt they needed a hardship player. And that's true. But then they got so hurt that they had to cut their injury replacement players to get different ones to do certain things because they needed certain skills or positions that bad. Like it was just kind of comical. And so that those stretches of the season become impossible to analyze for the reasons you said. It's like this group of 5 has never played together, and in many cases, unfortunately for the Pacers, will never play together again, right? So you would hope if you're making decisions for this team, you're like, well, hopefully next year at some point we can put some of these 5-man lineups that we've gotten to see this year on the floor and say, yes, we got experience with that last year. But even that is going to be hard with how banged up they've been and these sliding doors of injuries that have just made it all very hard. And then every once in a while, a player sneaks in. They're like, yeah, we're playing with a guy who doesn't know the play, or like, yeah, I'm playing a different role than I played last game, or, I don't know where my shots are coming from. And I'm like, duh, like, why am I not giving more weight to that? That is always a big part of it. And that would cause different sort of issues every game. Everybody, quick breaks. We can talk about 2 great groups of people. First up is FanDuel Fridays. Always feel different during basketball season. FanDuel's making them even better. Every Friday night before the game tips off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts from 6 to 7:30 Eastern on Friday. Appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour because you open the FanDuel app during then. You will always see something new. Boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off. Make sure you can make a move before the window closes. The timing is perfect, right before the games, right before your weekend gets going. It adds some extra energy and excitement to your Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app. See what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Let's also very quickly talk about Quo. New year, new systems. It's the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. There is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make, and that is why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, the smarter way to run your business communications, because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating all in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Your whole team can hop in on a call or text from one shared business number so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replying easier and faster and more personal. It works right on your phone or your computer, and you can even keep your existing number. Quote, smart AI tools help you log calls, summarize conversations, and highlight the next steps, so details never slip through the cracks. It's no surprise Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this year where no opportunity and customer slips away. Try Quo for free. Plus, get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNBA. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNBA. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. You know what hasn't been an issue recently, John? The center spot. It's getting better because out of nowhere, an injury to Tony Bradley here, a concussion to Isaiah Jackson there, a very, very odd contract rule that I and every cap dork I know had never heard of, means James Wiseman could not be on the team for a certain 3-day stretch. They need someone else. Here comes Micah Potter. And he's starting, and he's playing the floor next to Tony Bradley. And those minutes are going pretty well, and he can shoot, and he can move a little bit, and he sets hard screens, and the Pacers do well in his minutes. And then I said, I think his worst skill compared to the rest of the Pacers centers is his rebounding. And then he had 10 rebounds against the Magic. He's playing pretty well in a way that is like actually additive to the players around him. Andrew Nembhard says he knows how to play. Every guy says he just understands his role. I mean, he has just come in and seized this center job. Who knows if Isaiah Jackson / when Isaiah Jackson comes back, what the rotation will look like at the 5, but I would probably keep starting the guy who can shoot for now. How have you seen this happen? Because this has been such a shift from this team with center by committee searching for answers at the 5. Turns out the answer was a guy who wasn't on any NBA team until this point of the season.
Yeah, I'm probably like one of the basketball world's foremost Micah Potter experts, just because I've followed him since he was in high school, because he's from the town that I live in, right? I think we've all had this experience. So I grew up in Carmel, Indiana, but I moved to Menor, Ohio about 10 years ago. And so when a guy's from your hometown, like, you take notice, right? So Mitch Trubisky's from here. I know a lot of people don't think Mitch Trubisky's a good NFL quarterback, but I want him to succeed because he's from Menor, Ohio, right? Same way with this Micah Potter, this 6'10", tall man that is from my hometown, went to Montverde Academy, same place that Cooper Flagg played basketball. And then went to Ohio State and went to Wisconsin. And so I've just kind of been following this guy, for a while. I went to a Cavs game last year when he was with the Utah Jazz. I made a little sign for him, Menor Zone to the NBA, got on the Jazz broadcast for that, right? Because, you cheer for people from your hometown. So when, my favorite basketball team signed a guy from my hometown, took notice. And so what does Micah bring to the table? He's a little bit undersized. He hasn't played a lot of center in the NBA before coming to the Pacers, to be honest. I watched a lot of his games back when he was with the Jazz. He played a lot of 4. He even played some 3 for the Jazz, believe it or not. Obviously they got Walker Kessler. They had Filipowski out there. He played a lot of 4 and 3 with the Jazz. And so now he comes to the Pacers and they're just strictly a 5. And he's probably an undersized 5, but what does he do well? Obviously he shoots the rock. I think he's like a career 41% 3-point shooter in the G League. Doesn't shoot it quite as well in the NBA where guys are a little bit longer, probably is not as open as often. Obviously he's not, getting as much playing time, not as consistent of reps in the NBA, but still shoots it at a high clip, hit 4 threes the other night. Who was that against that he hit 4 threes against between the 2 Orlando games? San Antonio, right. The team he was with in training camp. Exactly. Yeah. So hit 4 threes that night. He had a 6 assist game against the Rockets last week. And I think the things, and you've mentioned them a couple times on your podcast already. The ball doesn't stick with him offensively, right? Offensively, he shoots the ball if he's open. If he doesn't shoot the ball, he does a really good job of moving it, of dribbling up and moving it. And, he also sets firmer screens, I think, than a lot of Pacers big men have for years. And I'm actually curious, I wonder, maybe this is something that you could ask the coaching staff. I know, a couple years ago when Rick was putting this offense in, it was almost like blur screens were like the new big deal, right? We don't actually want to set, official hard, prototypical classic screens. We want to go blur screens, quick movement, boom, 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 boom. And, that obviously worked. It created 2 of the most efficient offenses back to back in NBA history when you have Tyrese Haliburton. But I'm almost wondering, now that Haliburton's gone, are Nembhard and Siakam and Nesmith even, are they looking around? Are they more appreciative of these like more classical, strong on-ball screens that are getting them a little bit more open on just basic pick and roll options? Basic pick and roll sets that Micah Potter sets, as opposed to the screens that they've been getting for the last couple of years. That's what I've seen offensively that he's brought to the table: better shooting, better screening, and quicker ball movement.
The screening is fascinating because Jay Huff gets out of his screen too fast sometimes, and I my theory is that it's because he's not very fast and he needs the head start to actually make the defense come with him if he rolls, and he's never had to care about how much contact or how quick he gets out of it if he pops, because he can either just shoot it, or he's shown that he can, if he gets a fake and gets space, he can take the guy off the dribble. So his screens, he gets out of it too fast. Isaiah Jackson gets out of him too fast for the exact opposite reason, because he's so fast that if he gets out quickly, he might be open. Tony Bradley's a good screen setter. He takes his time, he waits up there, but he's also a little slower. So Potter kind of combines all the best parts of what those guys do in the screen, that he's quick enough to get out of it quick, but he can pop, but he can go toward the rim, and he actually makes contact in a way that does open up the court for other guys. Whereas if there's no contact, or the player's in the way because they're too slow, or they don't actually create any gravity because they're too fast or whatever, you get nothing out of it, right? And so he's been good about that. I agree with you. The Miles Turner stuff that I think they miss, but honestly, the most on offense, despite no one understanding that he was really good at this last year, is just that top of the key, move it to the next guy stuff that was really important for them to get action to action last year. Potter came in day one. Great. He can do that right away. That's what I think about when injured Nembhard's like, yeah, he knows how to play, right? He just keeps it going from thing to thing. And the defense, I would just call it probably good enough, right? If you stink on defense, all this offensive stuff we'll talk about won't matter, but he's guarded well enough. He's fit with their system, with that opening 5 especially, and you never know how it's going to go. And once again, they cycle to a new starter, although he was good that second half when he got moved there against Orlando, but it looked fine against the Spurs. It looked fine again in Orlando. Like, I'm sticking with Potter right now. Even if Isaiah Jackson comes back, I might go Potter Jackson as my rotation as the Pacers 5s, which is crazy to say, like just kind of unfathomable given how their season has gone. And it's so I'd say that he just finally had in Orlando his first stint that I was like, that was a bad stint, right? He faded out of the middle of the zone. His defense wasn't as good in that second quarter. Nobody's was, to be clear, but like he wasn't helping in as much as he usually does. Their offense or their rebounding wasn't as good in that frame, but that was the first time that happened. Like, if that doesn't happen again, obviously they should stick with this. And so as they continue down this path, like, I currently see no reason for them to go away from him as the starting big, which is crazy because their whole hope was like, hey, maybe it's one of these guys that could be our shorter long-term starter at the 5. How about a guy who wasn't on the team at all? How about that?
Yeah, the defensive thing is interesting. I feel like at the very least, he's from a coaching standpoint, you know what you're getting with him, right? He's generally going to be in the right spots. I find, I think sometimes he probably overhelps, and he may overhelp for too long, right?
That was
a
his
lot of times
problem on Paolo. He kept getting too far off of Paolo, which is fine. He's not a good shooter, but he made him pay.
Right. Well, and you see a lot of times, specifically when the other team is when there's like a big pick and roll, it seems like he and Siakam, especially, there have been a lot of instances where he and Siakam, and again, they've played 80 total minutes together at this point. Yeah, he and Siakam are still working through the communication. Am I supposed to hard shell? Am I supposed to stay back? What are we trying to do here?
Did you watch the FanDuel broadcast of the last game? Those two had like a long chat that was shown on the broadcast. Yeah.
Yes. And then the other thing is there have been a lot of cases. I remember there's a drive that Nikola Jovic had on him in Miami. There was another drive last game where Banchero took it to him. And I thought, he was in great position on both drives, but at the end of the day, he's 6'10", doesn't have the longest arms, and both guys who are good offensive players just finished over him. Maybe Jay Huff offers more, more resistance there. Maybe Isaiah Jackson offers more resistance in both of those instances. And those are times where, as a coach, you say, okay, he was in the right position, but no matter what he does, maybe he's not able to stop that. Do we live with that because of what he brings to us offensively? Because he's more reliable, stable, predictable in other areas defensively. Those are the limitations that he brings to you. He wasn't in the NBA a month ago, but he also had 16 and 6. He had a double-double last game. He's really playing very well for the Pacers right now.
I wonder when the scouting reports catch up to him starting. It's been 3 games now. Because that, to me, was like the Ethan Thompson moment where he looked good, and then other teams were like, yeah, we don't care. We're not guarding you at all. And now he doesn't play. He was fine. He just shouldn't be playing. They're healthier now, too. That's a big part of it, right? Jeremiah Robinson, and all sweet. He can get a bunch of rebounds. He's moving around well, and he can't make anything. He's not getting guarded either. He's not playing anymore, right? Potter does make shots. Eventually, other teams will have a plan for the things he does for the Pacers. How good does he look then? What does that kind of shift? That's kind of my next question, but we can't know that. We can't see the future, although you've seen him play on teams where he's on the scouting report before in Utah. We'll see how that goes. And one more break here, everybody, so we can talk about game time during basketball season. There is nothing like being in the building. The energy, the crowd, the first big run that gets everybody on their feet. Fans want to be there for those moments, not stuck refreshing screens or guessing what tickets are really going to cost. Live sports are the best, and Game Time is here to help. The app gives fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets fast, simple, without the guesswork. Browsing the Game Time app is straightforward and intuitive. Finding tickets takes just a few taps. You can see the view from your seat before you get there. The price includes the fees up front, so you're not surprised at the end. The zone deals help you find exactly what you're looking for, whether it's an NBA game or another event. Everything is right there in one place. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKDOWNNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today and get in on the action. John, bad news. Just when they got 6 guys for 2 straight games, Ben Mathurin goes down with now a thumb injury on top of his toe injury. These extremities are killer. I mean, they just impact every part of your game. And like Michael Scott reported, he's been dealing with it for a bit, like he was playing through it. Uh-oh. He's now out. They started Johnny Furphy at the 5th starter in Orlando. Not a good Furphy game. He had maybe the most unfun possession ever, getting blocked on a 3 and missing 2 free throws and getting blocked at the basket on the same possession. Furphy has largely defended well, I think, this season and has made enough shots, but probably needs to shoot a little better. Ben Shepherd is back and is balling. He looks great right now. We'll see if he continues to make shots. Jarris Walker is on fire from 3 right now, but has not been awesome, I would say. I think the threes are really propping up the way he's playing at the moment. But all those guys are young and interesting and have a case to start, and maybe they could go bigger or go different or whatever you want to say. How would you handle the 5th starter for the next X number of weeks, months, whatever they might be out, Ben Mathurin? I don't know if it'll be months. I have no idea what the timeline is.
I honestly don't hate the Furphy experience. I think the logic must be we need more juice in the second unit. So we have, we've got McConnell, we keep Shepherd in there, we keep Jarris Walker in there, whoever the backup big is. If you have a starting lineup of Nembhard, Siakam, and Nesmith, and then you put a big in there, you don't need your fifth guy to necessarily be a ball dominant player at all. You would like him to be a guy that is committed to playing defense, which Furphy is. Sometimes he's good. Sometimes he makes silly fouls, but he does play hard on that end. And someone that can hopefully knock down an open shot. He did 2 games ago. He didn't last game, right? But I kind of like having that sort of player, somebody that doesn't take up a lot of oxygen offensively in the lineup. And starting games hasn't been a problem, right? I think, when he went out yesterday, the Pacers had a 6-8 point lead. So the starting lineup worked just fine with him in there. And then that gives more opportunity for Ben Shepherd and Jarris Walker to shoulder more load with the second unit. They have both, as you said, Ben Shepherd's been playing great. Jarris Walker has been knocking some shots down. Let TJ McConnell, run that unit. And then I think you don't have to finish games with, Furphy. Maybe the better question is who
they did it. They closed with Shepherd in their last game. Yeah.
That's who I would close with. I would close with your starters, but Shepherd instead of Furphy, right? But I'm fine with Furphy starting. The starting games hasn't been the problem. Maybe the real question should be who should play second quarters, because that has been the problem recently.
So I think that is a very logical answer. I mean, it's got to be for defense or shooting purposes. And all three of these guys offer a lot of that in theory, but not all the time, right? That's right. Kind of the consequence of being a young player who has some, but not all the time levels of skill. And Furphy's defense has been his best thing this year, certainly. Now that Nesmith and Nembhard are there, he's on easier assignments. But he is the most natural so far deep fifth option. Like if you're playing with all three of Siakam, Nesmith, and Nembhard, you're shooting once every 7 minutes, right? Like not very often. You got to be good at that. You got to be okay with that. And Walker shoots a little more than that. Like naturally, that's fine. That's fine. He's making shots right now. Shepherd shoots a little more than that. And you're right that, especially for Walker Shepherd, they both have shown, maybe not with frequent success, but some at least dribble the ball toward the basket success this year. And the bench currently is none, especially with Mathurin now out. The bench is like none of that. It's TJ and no one who you want to be creating. And they don't play their 5 bench guys together like they have in past seasons where that group worked. So they always have Siakam out there and Nembhard out there or whatever. And Cam Jones is playing now. Maybe he'll be able to do that. But that is, especially with Shepherd, who's added more of that this season, toward the rim kind of pop, maybe a better spot for him. So I think my answer in terms of how it would make the total rotation come together will either be Furphy or Walker. And quite frankly, Furphy's just offering more skills that help that first group right now than Jarris Walker is, which is a huge bummer for what they hoped Jarris Walker's season could be. But he's shooting really well right now. But he is not playing exceptional outside of that in a way that I think the Pacers kind of hoped that he could. So I agree that right now, given the current needs we've seen from this starting 5 with Potter in it, I'm starting Furphy. If we see that they need more ball handling, maybe I would be more receptive to Shepherd. If Walker starts to show more defensive pop, I might go with him because his ceiling could in theory be higher. Could they squint and go, let's start TJ McConnell. Let's just give it a try. Yeah, they could squint and think that, but they shouldn't do it. And that's kind of it. I don't think Cam Jones is ready for that. So I think Furphy, like you, is currently the right answer, but if different, and as has been the case, by the way, if different issues pop up in upcoming games, I reserve the right to quickly change that answer.
Yeah, I think the most disappointing thing for me about Jarris Walker's development is I feel like his rookie season and even last year, you saw the things that I was most encouraged by was you saw some glimpses of playmaking out of him that you were like, oh, yep. Is there a little bit of, secondary ball handler, playmaker, creator in this player that would be the most important, thing I think for the Pacers to have down the road. And this season, I just haven't seen any of that. Looking at his numbers statistically, his lowest per 36 assist rate of his career. And he's playing more than he has. You would think he has the ball in his hands even more than, with Haliburton gone, with Nembhard gone for a lot of the season. His feel for the game just has not grown for what you would like. There are opportunities. You see him cut into the lane. There are shooters out there. There are opportunities for him to create for others. And really, it's basically, is his jump shot going in? And it has been a lot lately, right? But if his jump shot's not going in, he's not giving you hardly anything else offensively. And it's been real disappointing.
As if I were a Jarris Walker defender, which in the past I was, not for the same reasons everybody else. Everybody kept saying to play him for defense, and I was like, no, guys, like, please, that's not. He has not been that in the NBA yet. But I still was a believer in what he could do. If I wanted to say, well, his assists per 36 are down, I would say it's because he is certainly a finishes off an already broken defense guy, and they have less creators this year a lot. McConnell missed a lot of time. Haliburton hasn't played, so he has had less chances to do that. And, of course, they couldn't make anything for a month and a half of the season. Of course, your sister down. But that would be naive because I've watched the games. He just hasn't played as well. Like, I can see it, Like, the data doesn't really matter as much when he just doesn't look like he's playing as well. And so, yeah, he's had lots of chances. Like, I argued he should start earlier in the season when Nesmith was out because, yes, this is who you should want to seize this big role. And Furphy was out too at that time. And now Furphy's back and doing some stuff. I don't know. I think Furphy's the right answer. All right, we'll go short to end this one, John. Are they ever going to win a game again?
Yes. The Indiana Pacers will win. I don't think it's going to be against the Cavs, but I'm calling it right now.
You're predicting it. The longest losing streak ever. We're in it right now.
I am predicting that the losing streak will last for one more game, but the Pacers will turn things around against the Hornets after
the mighty Hornets.
13 games. I know the Hornets have had the Pacers number recently, even some of the better Pacers game. But I feel good about the Hornets game.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Hornets offense has been pretty good since LaMelo came back. They might actually be not a rollover and die level of team, but yeah, they're not particularly good. I don't know, man. They're playing better. The Cavs are not as good this year. They can beat Miami. They can beat Toronto and New Orleans. They can beat Charlotte. It's going to happen before they go on that road trip that's pretty long in the middle of this month, but I don't know when. And it would be wild to go from finals to longest losing streak in franchise history in consecutive seasons. Alas, that's where they are. That is where they are. It's unbelievable. Okay. Tomorrow, we'll be talking Pacers-Cavs. Is it 13 in a row? Do the Pacers get out of it like they have the last 4 times they've lost this many games in a row? Does Micah Potter keep starting? Who's the 5th starter? What else happens? It's their last chance for Micah Potter and Tony Bradley to prove themselves in their non-guaranteed deals. We have a lot to talk about on the next Locked On Pacers. John, thank you so much for joining today and talking about the kid from your kid from your town. Where can people find the things you say about the Pacers? Which recently is just liking all my tweets. John, you're liking too many of my tweets.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. Dina Mortgages on Twitter. And you should all follow Tony and like his tweets too, because they're all really good.
The Pacers mortgage empire continues to grow. The Midwest is taking over.
There we go.
Yes, back tomorrow talking Pacers Cavs and the week coming as the Pacers try to win again. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll see you very soon.